Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. And a lot of news to talk about today, but obviously we're going to start with the story that everyone's talking about. As you know, O.J. Simpson died at 76 years old of cancer. And Drudge Report, disgusting headline, cancer murders O.J. Drudge Report is completely going off the wire. But I wanted to, everyone's playing the trial as if O.J.'s life started with the trial. And, you know, this is O.J. Listen to this. This is a guy talking about in the NFL's greatest 100 greatest players. This is a guy describing O.J.
OJ's football legacy is destroyed. People will never remember or think about what a great running back he was because of the last half of his life, and there's no way around it. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure that out. In his obituary, football player now is mentioned in the first paragraph, but they don't talk about USC or the Bills until paragraph 5. I think people have completely overlooked the fact now that he was clearly the best running back of the 70s. So if you sort of realize that he's the best running back at a time when the most important part of the offensive game is running the football, I think you could easily argue that O.J. Simpson is the most valuable player of the 70s for the entire league.
And that's part of O.J. He's a football player. He's a great football player. One of the greatest running backs that ever lived. He also acted. He was in movies. He was in shows. Naked Gun. In telemovies. Guy was in commercials, one of the first crossover guys ever. And I'm not here to tell you I'm cheering for O.J. I mean, he died. Rest in peace. God bless him. Wherever he ends up, he ends up. But I'm going to tell you this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say this in the strongest possible words as I possibly can. In this country, which I love, I think it's the greatest country ever, you are innocent until proven not guilty. Let me say that again. You're innocent until proven not guilty. And O.J. Simpson was proven not guilty. Now, we all can say he killed her, whatever. But he was proven not guilty. The jury said not guilty. That means he's innocent because that's what we stand on, law and order. That's the system that we have. That's the system that we cheer for. That's the system that we say is the greatest system in the greatest country of the world. That's what we say. So you don't get to say, oh, I know he did it, and toss the verdict aside because the system says you're innocent until proven not guilty. He's proven not guilty by a jury of his peers. He goes home. That's it. End of story. You don't get to spend the rest of your life being told you're a murderer because people believe you're a murderer. I'm not sitting here to say he wasn't a murderer. I'm just sitting here to tell you that I believe in a system, and many of the people listening to me now believe in a system that says you're innocent until proven not guilty. And when you're proven not guilty, you're innocent because that's what the words say. So you don't get the pleasure of saying when a man is found not guilty, he did it anyway, and dog him for the rest of his life because you say he was guilty. Now, whatever the reasoning the jury had for finding him not guilty is not up to you because you weren't on a jury. You had a tainted cop, you had a tainted evidence, and the man was found not guilty. If you taint evidence in one area, the jury is likely to find you tainted all the evidence. What I find extremely fascinating is that the same people who will say there's a two-tier justice of system don't recognize there's a two-tier system of justice for a very long time. This country is filled with people who cheer for murderers. That African-American dominant jury was not the first jury to ever let a murderer go. And to act like or to talk like that jury, oh, the black people let him go because of racial discord, is mind-boggling to me. Because throughout the history of this country, people have gotten in a jury box, looked at a person who they knew made a murder, they knew strung up a man, they knew murdered a woman, they knew raped somebody, and said, nah, we're going to let you go home. For whatever the reason was. That's the system that we live under. And you don't get to decry the system when it goes against you. You don't get to all of a sudden jump up and down and yell and scream there's a two-tiered system of justice when there always has been a two-tiered justice system in this country. And that's what that jury was speaking out on. Yes, a woman and a man lost their life. You know how many women and men lost their life in this country and the jury let the murderers go? It's happened many times in the history of this country. We live in a country where mobsters, gangsters, murderers are celebrated. We live in a culture where the bad guys are celebrated. We live in a culture where Scarface, a murderous gangster drug dealer, was the hero of the movie. We live in a culture where the Godfather series, where everyone watched The Godfather and did not want Michael Corleone to go to jail. And he was a murderer of many people. And we cheered. We live in a culture where the cowboys who murdered the Indians, who were simply defending their land, they were here first. They're sitting on land and people come in with the cowboys and say, oh, you gotta go. And we cheer for the cowboys. Nobody growing up ever wanted to be the Indians. We cheer for Butch and Sundance. We cheer for John Dillinger. We cheered for Al Capone. We wanted them to beat the system. But then OJ comes along, oh, we're going to ruin you for the rest of your life. I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just simply pointing out the hypocrisy that exists. In this country, people who beat the system, and in OJ's case, he beat the system. He beat the system and the people on that jury said, you know what, go home. And then what happened after he went home? What happened? You sued him for family sued him for wrongful death for $300 million. How do you get sued for $300 million for a wrongful death that you were found not guilty of committing? How does anybody come along and say, well, clearly you didn't do it. Clearly the jury said you didn't do it. You're not guilty. And now, but we're going to slap a fine on you for wrongful death after the jury found you not guilty. Where does that happen? Oh, I know. I know where it happens. It happens in New York, where you can borrow money, pay it back with interest. The bank says you did nothing wrong. They want to continue to do business with you, and yet a attorney general will still fine you, and a judge will still fine you $450 million, even after the quote-unquote victims say you did nothing wrong. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's always been a two-tiered system of justice. Yes, people have been getting away with murder due to nullified juries since the day we formed this country. And you know what? It happened to OJ. Get over it. The guy was innocent until proven not guilty. A jury of his peers found him not guilty. Leave him alone. Because when he gets to the pearly gates, St. Peter's going to say, hey, OJ, what's going on? OJ's going to say, not guilty, St. Peter. St. Peter's going to say, that's the system. Come on in. 448-720-0750, 1-800-WSB-TALK. It's the Shelley Winter Show.